How much capital does it take to create a Nollywood blockbuster? And does Nigeria's new generation film industry offer lucrative investment opportunities? Good morning. It's another power-packed episode of Business Week where you'll get to catch up on all the big business and economic stories of the past week, including a fascinating discussion with two Nigerian filmmakers on the money and numbers behind African film. In case you missed all the major developments of the week, don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm Rolake Akinkunmi-Filani. Stay tuned. So, as usual, we're going to start with a look at global energy commodities and take a look at this. Oil prices, after a 2-week rally, a high of almost $100 a barrel, are back down. They've been down all week, actually, although Friday yesterday closed on a positive with Brent up by 95 bips and Western Texas Intermediate up by 92 bips. But that was not before a scorching downturn in oil prices. Not quite sure what to make of some of the figures, economic figures coming out of the US and Europe, and not really responding to the tightening supplies from Saudi and some of the OPEC Plus members. So we're seeing a massive fall in oil prices, although Friday ended on a positive note across the board. Let's take a look at what's happening in Nigeria's equity markets. Well, the bears had the end of the week again. Take a look at this, 17 bips down. The all share indexed at 66,454.59 points, ending the week down despite some positive movements in the week. Moderate deal volumes at $8.93 billion and market cap still around the 36.5 trillion naira mark. But it was a more positive picture in Europe and North America. Euro Stoxx 600 closed the week on a high, up 82 bips, and all the other markets in Europe, Paris, London, Germany, Spain, all followed suit. And the picture was no different on Wall Street, as we'll see shortly. All the major industrial indices, the Dow Jones, S&P, and NASDAQ Composite all ended the week on a positive across board, average of 1% increases across board. Well, a favorite part of our markets review is my business top picks. What are the big stories that happened this week? First, you can see the Nigeria labor unions and the government reached a temporary negotiation and called off a strike. Well, for 30 days only, so we shouldn't get too excited. But what were the main ingredients of the concessions that were reached? First, the government agreed that it would implement a minimum wage hike to, I think it was about 25,000 naira. It would also make monthly payments, income subsidy payments to about 15 million households of around 15,000 naira thereabouts. It was also going to suspend VAT on diesel for about 6 months, I believe, amongst other concessions that are to be made. Now, the question and the big questions are whether these promises will be implemented. We shall see. The labor unions have decided to hold out for at least a month, 30 days. So we'll be watching that very closely here on Arise News. And of course, in Egypt, over to North Africa, Egypt has been bleeding or faces the risk of bleeding its reserves. That's according to Christina Georgieva, IMF chief, who says that if the currency is not further devalued. Now take a look at that. IMF telling the Egyptian government that it needs to further devalue its currency to avoid finishing its reserves. And on the back of that, Moody's, the global ratings agency, has downgraded Egypt from B3 to CAA1. That's 7 steps below junk investment grade. So Egypt is facing a really difficult time. It has an economy of about $471 billion. Kenya, another African country, is tightening its belt. Austerity measures in Kenya as the government orders 10% budget cuts to ministries and state departments. In addition to that, the government has pulled out, Telkom Kenya, the national telecoms company, has pulled out on an acquisition deal with Helios. Helios is a private equity fund, and that probably will save the Kenyan government a bit of money. So belt tightening is happening across sub-Saharan Africa. Over in China, interesting development here because China is relaxing its rules on data flows in the bid to ease the business environment. Interestingly, Morgan Stanley had cited its decision to move 200 technology workers away from China as a result of its data restrictions and tightening, and Dentons, a law firm, had actually done the same and ended various partnerships. So the Chinese government is reviewing, the Cybersecurity Agency of China is reviewing its policy around data collection and data transfers, that's consumer information, payments information across its border. Is this a liberal step on the part of China? Does it signal long-term liberalization around the business environment? Well, time will tell, but still nonetheless, an interesting development. And finally, on my top pick this week, Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is scrapping the country's plan for a second high-speed rail. Now, this high-speed rail is meant to link cities like Birmingham with parts of northern England. It was going to cost the UK government about $62 billion. Well, in these difficult economic times, Rishi Sunak, the Conservative Prime Minister, has taken the view that that money should be spent on other types of infrastructure, so has decided to reallocate that money to roadworks and other minor rail infrastructure projects. Some protests in some corners of Britain, but by and large, his party is supportive of that. And that's it for the top weeks. And now for some other stories from around the world. Well, in Nigeria, the Minister for Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosu Tijani, last Monday released a 31-page blueprint document that highlights the ministry's plans for the transformative power of digital technology and innovation to strengthen the nation's economy. He made the announcement on his profile on X on Monday. The document, titled Accelerating Our Collective Prosperity Through Technical Efficiency, is said to be a critical launchpad in the journey towards a Nigeria that thrives in the digital age, Tijani stated in the preface. The minister said the strategic blueprint outlines the ministry's focus areas, which were drafted based on extensive engagement with stakeholders from ministries, departments, and parastatals, ecosystem stakeholders, and his immediate team. Still on Nigeria, after 63 years of independence, Nigeria is still heavily reliant on imports, putting a damper on its efforts to boost industrialization, according to a Business Day report during the week. The country's currency has depreciated above 1,000 naira to the dollar on the parallel market for the first time ever, making it difficult for businesses in the manufacturing sector to thrive. Experts say that in the 60s to early 80s, when the naira was stronger than the US dollar, it encouraged import dependence but slowed the pace of growth and development in the manufacturing sector. Successive governments have adopted various policies aimed at reducing over-dependence on imports, creating a high number of local jobs, and saving the foreign exchange. But a lack of implementation and continuity of policies have hampered industrialization. Well, to another issue here, the e-naira. Despite its success in closing the financial inclusion gap in Nigeria, a recent analysis has highlighted concerns around Nigeria's central bank's digital currency, the e-naira, signaling potential hazards to the financial stability system. The e-naira, which was introduced almost 2 years ago under the direction of former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, will celebrate its second birthday in October. While the CBN promoted the e-naira as a way to increase financial inclusion and broaden the deposit base of banks, its research on the economics of digital currency raises concerns about stability risks associated with the conversion of bank deposits into e-naira. McKinsey analysts identified 63 generative AI use cases spanning 16 business functions, potentially delivering up to $4.4 trillion in annual economic benefits. Unlike traditional AI, which adheres to an established playbook, generative AI acts like a strategic think tank. It sifts through vast and diverse information, synthesizing insights to formulate solutions previously unheard of and unknown by humans. The breakthrough is just the beginning, signaling untapped potential in generative AI. It can help businesses by spotting inefficiencies, automating tasks, and driving innovation for better efficiency and cost savings. As businesses hasten to adopt this technology, understanding its potential to contribute value and the associated risks and challenges are becoming critical. While sub-Saharan Africa's region's economies face a number of difficulties, according to the World Bank, including a lost decade of slow development, consistently low per capita income, growing budgetary pressures made worse by huge debt loads, and a pressing need for job creation. The World Bank contends that in order to address these complex problems and advance economic growth, eliminate poverty, and provide the youth population with sustainable work prospects, substantial changes are necessary. The most recent World Bank Africa's Pulse report attributes the dimming of economic prospects to increased instability, subpar growth in the biggest nations in the region, and persistent uncertainty in the global economy. Well, the clouds are gathering over Microsoft's Azure's operations in the EU and now the UK with the launch of a new investigation into major cloud service providers that also includes Amazon. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority is just about to wrap up its concerns over cloud gaming with Microsoft's proposed Activision Blizzard acquisition, but it will soon turn its attention to Microsoft Azure cloud offerings and Amazon Web Services. It's part of a fresh investigation into public cloud providers in the UK after telecoms regulator Ofcom identified a number of features in the supply of cloud services that make it more difficult for customers to switch and use multiple cloud suppliers. Well, that's it for the market roundup.